welcome to another episode of Healthy in a Wild World. And today I have a very special guest with me. We talked a little bit about my fertility journey, and we really haven't discussed it much on this channel. But Becky ACKERMAN is with me today, and this is what she focuses on. And I'm telling you guys, had I met her 8-9 years ago, my journey wouldn't have felt as what is the word that we want to put on it? Because I hate saying traumatic, considering I ended up with the most beautiful miracles of all, but it's pretty traumatic. So I'm gonna turn the camera over to her now, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself to you guys. And I'm excited to talk about this topic today. So
it's a big topic. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Becky ACKERMAN, and I am a fertility mindset coach. And just like Bonnie, the reason that I came to this is because I have my own fertility story that started many, many years ago at this point. But, you know, everybody goes into it thinking, oh, this is so easy. I'll be pregnant in no time, you know? It's really, it is one of the failings, I think, of our educational system, that they really scare you. Like, sex is going to get you pregnant. Boom, just like that. Yeah. But that's not, I mean, even the best of cases, that's not usually the way it works out. So, you know, we were going for a while and nothing was happening. And it was kind of like, this doesn't feel right. But you know, there's some impatience in there too for all of us. I think after a few months, we all kind of go, well, there must be a problem. I'm not pregnant yet. But then around 9 months, my doctor said, okay, well, let's do some tests. She did not make me go the full year. Yeah. So the blood work all came back pretty normal, but we also did a hysterosalpingogram. And that came back showing that one of my tubes was partially blocked. Now, this particular doctor's opinion was that abdominal surgery was a bad idea because it could potentially create more scar tissue and make the problem worse. Unfortunately, as I learned 3 years later, two and a half years later, I went for 2 years like this, until I finally found the right doctor who said, no, we have to go in and take a look and see what the problem is. And so it turned out that the problem was I had endometriosis, and I had no idea. I've never had any of the traditional symptoms, nothing, but I was completely full of it. And my left fallopian tube was filled 100% with fluid. And, you know, just for those of you who may not know, when you have a fluid-filled tube, that fluid constantly washes into your uterus. And so even if there is a fertilized egg, it stands no chance of implanting. So he cleaned out all the endometriosis. He found a fibroid that I didn't know I had and took that out, a sizable one at that. And actually, this first time around, he drained my tube and pinned it, because before I went in for surgery, I told my husband, I don't want him to take anything out, because I was nervous that it was going to be something catastrophic, like she needs a hysterectomy. And I didn't want to have it without me knowing that I was having it. So he respected the instructions and he pinned it open, but said, this is temporary. It will probably fill again. And so we went, then 6 months we tried on our own for a little bit, because with the open tube, there was technically nothing wrong with me. Mm-hmm. So we tried for about 3 months on our own, and then we started down the IUI path. The first round didn't work. I ovulated spontaneously before the trigger shot, so that was shot. And then in the middle of the second one, I was in for a monitoring appointment, and he was looking at the ultrasound, and he's like, what? Oh, the tube is filled up again. So It was about 8 months after 9 months after the first surgery. I had the second one. They took the tube out. At which point, the doctor told me, okay, well, everything is good now. Like, this is a good fix, but because you only have one tube, you will probably have a hard time getting pregnant. Okay, so note to everybody listening, just because a doctor says something to you does not mean it's true.
Yes.
Do not internalize those messages. It's a huge mistake. We all think that a doctor knows. We all just, we take it on faith that the doctor knows what they're talking about, because for the most part, they do know more about the thing, whatever it is, than we do, but they're not always right. So again, we went and tried. I was like, I don't care. I want to try a little bit unassisted. So we went for probably about 3 months again. Nothing. Went back, tried 2 more IUIs, neither of which came even close to working, because the meds just didn't do anything for me.
Wow.
I really didn't produce any reasonable quantity of eggs. It was sort of like one every time. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, so then he's like, well, you should really do IVF. And I found myself thinking, well, if I'm not responding to these meds, I just sort of had this visual of like I was banging my head on a wall, and IVF was just going to be made banging it harder.
I felt when I got there,
Um,
I felt the same thing. It took me a while to pull that plug. I feel you
yeah.
on.
So at that point, very coincidentally, we found out that we were being relocated for my husband's job. And so I said, okay, I'm taking a break. We're done. We're walking away for a little bit. So took about 6, 7 months off. And then when we were settled, I found a woman who does Mayan abdominal massage. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's a lovely technique. And so I started seeing her, and she was a little bit of an herbalist. So she put me on a couple things. And from there, I just sort of kept going down the kind of alternative road, and I found a hypnosis practitioner, and I started seeing her, and she was amazing. Like, amazing. For those of you who have never done hypnosis or had a guided meditation session, it's unbelievably relaxing. And then out of sort of desperation, because I really hate needles, like really hate needles, I said, okay, I'm going to go see an acupuncturist. And I did. And so after I'd seen the acupuncturist for a month, I got pregnant. So it was about 6 months from the time I started the alternative stuff till the time I got pregnant. And that was my first child. That one took and that one held. And then the story keeps going. After about 2.5 years after the first one was born, we said, okay, well, let's try for a second one. So we did, and I got pregnant right away, like first thing out of the gate. But then at 6 weeks, I miscarried. And it wasn't a big deal to me. I'd already decided that I was super lucky that I'd gotten the one. So if I never got any others, I was going to be okay. But also, I got pregnant really fast. So I was like, oh, I've totally got this. I'll get pregnant again in a minute. 15 months went by. We reran a bunch of tests. Numbers were all still normal. Couldn't figure out what was going on. I was getting super frustrated. And then one night, I was just like, wait, why am I not doing any of the meditations, any of the breathing exercises, any of that stuff that I'd learned the first time around? And I started doing it and got pregnant again, next cycle. And that was sort of the big moment where I went, oh, I see it. I get it. There's more here. There's more here than just sperm and egg, and can they get to each other?
Right.
So then when it was time, when we decided we were going to try for a third baby, I started meditating ahead of time and got pregnant immediately. So, yeah.
I remember our first discussion and how our stories are kind of flip flopped. I actually, when we first started trying, I worked with an acupuncturist. I was the nutritionist inside the wellness center. And so I had her, I had an energy healer, we had a massage therapist that came in that worked on pregnant women and those trying to conceive. It was the perfect setup. My degree's in alternative medicine. focusing in herbal medicine.
Right.
So, it felt like the perfect situation,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. I had a lot of issues. And I remember sitting at our final IUI appointment, our first doctor, and I really regret not going with the referral to the second doctor
Mhm.
initially, because he was exactly what we needed.
Yeah.
It's not that the first doctor wasn't telling us the truth, but she was talking to us and talking down to us. And when we went in to do the third IUI, for those of you that don't know, when you go in to do an IUI and they do an insertion, they have to use an ultrasound to know which
Where they're going.
side they're going to come from. One is exploding with eggs. The other one is not. Like they have to use an ultrasound to figure out where to put this sperm, right? And she didn't use an ultrasound. She
Oh,
didn't use
really?
all on the. She just kind of sat down, did her thing. I was like, all right, that's it, and walked out. And that was my last interaction. I remember barely making it to the car before bawling my eyes out, because it felt like such a wasted effort.
Yeah.
I wasted all these hormones I was putting in my body. And, we tried acupuncture and herbal medicine and mindset work. Mindset has always actually been a core principle that I teach my clients. It's always been there because, as you know, it's such a crucial element.
Yes, it is. It is. And I would say to anybody who heard my story and was like, well, that can't possibly get you pregnant. For a lot of people, that on its own may not be enough, but it is still an important piece of it for a couple of reasons. The first is because anybody who's going through any sort of infertility, anything, knows how crappy it makes you feel. And you can really use your mindset to improve the way you feel as you're going through whatever you're going through. The second thing is that I think a lot of times, once we sort of start down that road and we kind of have it in our head that I have a problem and this is going to be hard, we kind of throw a roadblock up for ourselves. And so working on the mindset can pull that roadblock down so that no matter what you're trying to do, if you're trying naturally or IUI or IVF or donor eggs, whatever, it just makes it easier for your body to do what it is supposed to do.
Right, right. And I will tell you, so we went through 2 final rounds of IVF when I was 46. Right after I turned 46, we did one, and it was just happenstance. We took a break because I was done. I figured that was it. And eventually it was like, okay, I'm 45. If we're going to do this, let's try one more round. So we figured do IVF. That was going to be the last. And our first round didn't take. So I was done. And we ended up with these 2 eggs, these 2 embryos waiting, right? Just waiting in
Yep.
oblivion, and the idea of letting them go versus just throwing caution to the wind, like just throw spaghetti on the wall.
Yep.
And this was after we had a very long discussion after that first round with the doctor. We had a very long discussion with him about what he felt went wrong. And we had to talk about herbal medicine. We had to talk about mindset. And he asked me how I was feeling during that time. And I had given up before, in hindsight, I had given up before we went through any of that. I was just going through the motions. And when we went back for that final round, I didn't think anything was going to happen. So my focus was on, let me take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing my meditations. I was journaling. I have ADHD. So if anybody out there has ADHD, I'm telling you, all you have to do is get a book and just write all that stuff down. It does not make sense when you read it back, but write all of it down. I resisted that for so long, and it's such a core element in sanity. Like I seriously, this is my sanity journal.
That's awesome.
God knows what's in it. Probably doesn't make sense half the time, but
it doesn't even matter.
It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
it doesn't
If I
matter.
feel like life is overwhelming, this is where it goes, and it has a special place. And I was doing all of these things, and I dropped the phone when she told me that I dropped it. And the oh my gosh, is it HCG numbers? Am I remembering that correctly?
Mhm.
They were off the chart. And everybody in the office is like, yeah, they both took. Guarantee you they both took. And my husband and I were like, yeah, right. Be lucky if one stays around for 9 months. Sure, like whatever, right? And sure enough, here we are. And it was it was definitely one of those moments where you look back and go, if only I had known before. And hindsight's always 2020.
Always.
You don't know. And it was such a challenge. And then to top it off, we were older. We didn't meet till I was 40. And it actually explains a lot of things during my California days and before, when I was very happily single. Um, but beyond that, it was, and you look back. I don't know if you did this, but I look back on so much and I'm like, man, I wasted so much money
Oh,
on
yes.
protection for pregnancy that I didn't even need to bother with it. Basically, the shape of my uterus, if I did not go through IVF, I would not have gotten pregnant.
Oh, really? Do you have what? Is it tilted?
But it's tilted and then it's like almost heart shaped.
Okay.
So if I had not had help, I would not have gotten pregnant. So that it's kind of one of those things I look back and go, man, I spent a lot of money.
I know, but you don't know till you know. So,
Yeah, you don't know. And kids was never one of my I have to must haves until I couldn't.
of course.
And then it was
That's
like,
always.
wait a minute, I have done, like, if I want to do something, I have done it. What do you mean I can't do this? And I will tell you that through IVF, when I did the one round without my usual self-care methods, comparing that to the second, it's significantly different. It feels significantly different, and not because of the outcome.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just feels different.
Because there was different. I mean, it was different. Something was definitely different.
Yeah, I was taking care of me. I was
Yeah.
taking care of my mind, and it takes a toll because you're going through all of these things. And from a nutrition perspective, that stress and that worry and anxiety that's really triggering your gut and your brain to just go into chaos mode is normally what I call it. Um, that's when sugar cravings start. And that's when, you start living on caffeine, and now you've gone from just needing to do a little journaling and some meditation to,
Yeah. Something actually.
yeah, something's actually physically wrong. So now we have to physically fix it, plus the mental fix it.
Yeah.
And that's really not anything that anybody talks about with a fertility journey ever.
It's true. There aren't very many people who talk about that. And so that's one of the things that I'm hoping to sort of change. There are a few other people that I've encountered who are talking about the same thing, but I do, it's so important. You have an issue, and so you go to the fertility doctor, which makes perfect sense. That's where you should go. But they are equipped to help you with one very specific thing because that's what they do.
Right.
And so, if that's the route that you either want or need to go, you've got to figure out the other pieces, either on your own or using help. But there is so much that you can do to kind of give yourself a leg up to make sure that you're not simply going through the motions, crossing your fingers, and hoping. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. I think from this perspective today, I kind of feel like I don't want to, when the boys ask, well, what was my story? Because they always ask. At some point they
Yeah.
always ask, right? And they're still too young, and I don't want them to think that that was part of their journey. I mean, reality and truth it was, but it's one of those regrets I have, mostly because I know better. I've been in this field for 20 years, and you and I both know we are our worst
Of course,
clients.
always 100%. Yep.
Worst clients. And that was my worst client moment.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was a personal trainer before I made the flip to fertility coaching. I was a personal trainer and a group fitness instructor. And so interestingly, looking back, the one thing that I sometimes wonder, and my mom used to ask me all the time, she's like, "Do you think you're exercising too much?" And I was always like, "But I'm totally regular. Everything checks out." But I do, in the back of my mind, I kind of do sometimes wonder, well, if I'd eased up a little bit, what would have happened?
Right.
I
Right.
mean, it's moot. It doesn't matter at
It,
this
it
point,
it
but
really doesn't. I mean, I was a personal trainer and I ran half marathons, and coached gobs of women through those. At this point, it's
yes. And just to say that everybody's body is different. There are marathon runners who can get pregnant really easily. And there are women who go out and run 4 miles every day for whom that may be too much. So everything, which which is something actually really important when I talk about stress. A lot of people kind of push back on that and they're like, well, but so and so, she works whatever high powered job. It's the same thing. Everybody is different. Everybody's threshold and tolerance is very different. And so if you know that you are stressed out by something, bothered by something,
mhm.
you know, think about it for a minute, and maybe it is affecting you in a way that you didn't expect it to, or you wouldn't expect it to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always telling people, and I started telling people this probably about 5 years into training. Because when I first started training, I thought, well, you just work out and you work off the calories that you ate. Like if you have a cookie, you just work it off. That's what you do. And yeah, learning nutrition is not what you do. That's
How
not how
would you
you
do?
do it. You just
Calories
enjoy
are
the freaking cookie.
calories are a lie, but that's a whole other
Yeah, that's a whole other
conversation.
episode. um, And I'm always telling people that you don't pick up a diet book and go, okay, this is for me. That's not how you figure out how you're supposed to eat, what you're supposed to eat. The activities you should do outside of your diet to maintain your health, to make you feel better. If
Right.
it makes you feel good, there's probably a reason.
Right. And so I would say the exact same thing goes with fertility and the whole spectrum of treatments. If something feels right to you, you should probably pursue that. And just to go way back earlier in our conversation, when you were talking about the doctor that you kind of knew the whole time you shouldn't have been with. So when something feels off, when we've all got a little voice in there and it is talking to us, it's just a question of whether we're listening to it. But when you hear it saying, this isn't right, this doesn't feel right, that is your signal to run
Yes,
and go find what feels right to you.
agreed.
Because the best fertility doctor on paper is really no good for you if you don't feel comfortable with
Right.
that person. I mean, it's all it so much of medicine, and there are studies that prove this. So much of medicine is rapport. It's how you get along with the doctor and how they listen and how you respond, and not what their stats are on paper.
No. Our second doctor actually looked at our paperwork, saw what I did for a living, saw, like, they ask you everything about your life. What was your background? Have you gone to school? It's like filling out an application for a job. And he saw what I did. He saw that I had just finished my degree, and or was finished at the time when I met him. I was in my last year, and he got out all of his medical books and his research notes, and he gave me a list of links to take home with me.
Nice. That's great.
He knew that I was going to ask for those things, especially after our first experience. Um, and it's important for people to know that, even working with you and I, if you sit down and talk with us and it doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
this isn't where you're supposed to be, and that's okay.
Yes. Yes. That's why I like to say fertility coaches, just as an example, we come in flavors.
Yeah.
We come in flavors, and you have to find the one that works for you.
Hmm. Very much so.
Yeah.
There's so many health coaches out there. There's so many nutritionists, dietitians. You have to find the people that's going to resonate with you, that you're going to listen to, and not listen like he said to do it, do it.
Right.
You're going to listen. It's going to make sense, and it's going to be something that you can infuse a little joy and positivity into your world. Because I look back, and there's so much of my journey that feels negative today, and eh, knowing what I know, it did not have to feel that way.
No, I mean, it's it's hard to say that, nobody's going to have a happy, joyful fertility struggle. Like,
No.
that's not a thing, and I fully understand that. But it doesn't have to feel like a slog through the mud.
Yeah.
There are ways, to find your moments of joy in all of it. There are ways to deal with the pregnancy announcements of your friends.
Mhm.
There
Mhm.
are, yeah, there are ways to politely tell people to shut up when they ask you too many questions.
Yeah, there absolutely are, and, when you screw them up from personal experience, people understand.
Yeah,
They understand. When you're ready to talk about it, people understand.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
it's good. So now you had mentioned something about tapping into your mind-body connection, so that it's not just meditating, it's actually more than that. Can you
It's
expand on that a little bit?
so sure. So, the mind and the mind and the body are truly connected. It's not just that our brain is sitting up there directing our body what to do. They talk to each other, and your body listens, if you will, and it more than just like the simple command, lift your arm. There's it's more nuanced than that. And so when we have trouble conceiving, a lot of times we tend to go negative. I can't, it's never gonna, how do I, maybe, what did I do, is it me? Um and so your body hears that, it hears the I can'ts and the it's never gonna's, and it says, oh, okay, well, I guess I can't. And I know it sounds crazy when you say it out loud, but there is a whole network in there of the nerves and the hormones and all of that, and they send signals, and your body knows. So that's one of the main things that I like to sort of tackle, is how to change, not necessarily to a positive, everything's great and I'm totally going to get pregnant, because there's a little bit of unhealthiness in that as well. But to a healthy, let's see if I can do this. Let's see how this is going to go. I think maybe I can. I'm willing to give it a shot. Um, to sort of a more tempered, less negative. And we do that a lot of different ways. Journaling exercises are a really, really great way to do it. Guided meditations as well, that can sort of guide you through your body in
Mhm.
some cases, to fix things that may need fixing, or to just allow you to visualize, just like athletes visualize what they're going to do when they go out to play. It's the same kind of thing. You can visualize exactly what should be happening in your body, and direct your body in that way. This is what I want to see from you today. Let's get it done. Um, so those are some of the ways. It's about, like I mentioned earlier, just removing that roadblock that maybe you've thrown up for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really a big part of it, because they don't give you, when you go into the doctor for fertility, there is no psychological care, there is no, "Are you talking to anybody about your mental health?" Um, they didn't even ask about how we were eating. They asked about our physical activity. That's what they asked about. They
Well,
didn't ask.
because what do they know about what you're eating? I mean, what would, they don't know what to.
They don't. That's reality. They don't. They really don't. You know, when you're becoming a doctor, today they give you a little bit more. I've found out. I'm very happy about this. But what used to happen is you got like a workshop. You didn't even have to take a full class.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're coming out of school and you're interacting, you're now a doctor, you're working. This isn't part of your normal day-to-day practice. This is something you work on. And there's so much more to it. So you really have to take charge. You have to,
You need to assemble your own team.
yes, thank you. That's a very good way of saying that. Yeah, you do.
Yeah. You know, I know that there are some clinics that are starting to sort of work on that model a little bit more, but they're still sort of few and far between. And a lot of times you just go in and they're like, okay, IVF, IUI, which one, what's it going to be today?
Yeah,
Sort of thing, which is fine. I don't fault them. I don't blame them. They do wonderful work. That's what they are trained to do.
right.
But there is and there can be more to it than that.
Yeah, there really can be. And, you know, I'm really hopeful that at some point with our society that it won't lead to having to create our own team from scratch every single time. Every time we hit a roadblock in our health or something's happening, you know, I'm hopeful that that is a progression that we start seeing. But
It feels like slowly. It
Mhm.
feels like slowly we're headed in that direction. I mean, if you think about it, like 20, 30 years ago, like mindfulness stuff was
Oh yeah.
sort of that was like way out there and kind of woo, and I don't know, that person might be weird. And I am a little weird. Maybe y'all think I'm weird. I am a little weird.
Well,
But but
who knows?
it's very mainstream. I mean, everybody knows what it is to
Hmm.
meditate. Everybody understands what mindset is. You know,
Yeah,
this is all much more normal than it ever used to be. So I think we're moving slowly in that direction.
yeah. It's a good direction. I'm liking this. I'm liking this direction a lot. There's so much that is in the world today that would have helped me um, during my 20s and during my 30s. You know,
Yeah.
you see
Yes.
things now and you're just like, man, and not technology, but a lot of these modalities, these techniques that we're using to improve our health and improve our health long term.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have been tremendously impactful. I
Yeah.
might not have moved away from Maryland for this beautiful sun that I'm blessed with all the time. Who knows? I might still have
I was
though.
gonna say, I feel like that's a different issue.
Yeah, I do really well with all the sun in the South, so we stay down here.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
So you had talked about some of the things, like drowning out the noise. You used the phrase drowning out the noise. And I remember, especially right at the beginning, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was walking into. This was not a journey I thought I would ever have to take. It was not something that I even knew anything about. And there was a lot of noise. There was so much out there. It's, you know, you go and search Dr. Google and Dr. Google tells you that your sniffle is, you know, you got
Yeah.
5 days left, dude. You're,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that's
Dr. Google's a dangerous guy. I mean, I think we all fall into that trap from time to time, but he's one to stay away from.
yeah, he
Um,
is.
because you can go on and you can find a new diagnosis for yourself every day. You can find a new diet for yourself every day. You can find a new exercise for yourself every day, and then slowly you are driving yourself crazy,
Yeah,
trying all the things, trying them rapidly without giving any one of them enough time to even work. um, because that's an important point, that whatever you choose to try will not work overnight, be it exercise, diet, mindfulness. None of it works overnight. You need on average between 3 and 6 months to start seeing any real change with all of this. So when you read about whatever fertility diet and you start it, and after a month you go, well, I'm not pregnant, so clearly it's not working, I'm going to try another one. You are stressing yourself out. You are doing a lot of work for no particular reason. You've got to stick with whatever you pick.
Yeah, you do. I think that's a really good point. And then there's also the Googling all of your symptoms after the fact. What does this mean? What does that mean? Does this mean an implanted? Does this mean that, you know, is this the medicine or is this something that happened? That I think was my most toxic trait during that time frame.
And so common. I certainly used to do it too, but it's, in the end, it's nothing but stressful.
Yes.
And when I finally realized that, that was like a big moment of like, oh Lord, I feel so much better when I stay away. And I just,
Yeah.
I just try to go about my life as best I can, doing whatever little things, whatever little strategies I've decided I'm going to do, and just wait.
Yeah.
And just wait. I mean, I remember, just like everybody, day whatever of my cycle would come, and it's like, okay, well, I've got the test that says you can test 5 days early and it'll work, so I'm going to test now. And one day I was like, no, I have to get to at least, so 28 was my average cycle length, and I finally had an agreement that, okay, if I get to day 28 and I'm still not bleeding, then I can test. And truthfully, the cycle that I got pregnant on the first time, I had said, I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to wait. And on day 30, I was like, okay, I feel like I've waited enough. This is weird.
Mm-hmm.
But the testing early, because you test early and it comes back negative, and you think to yourself, well, maybe it's too early. Maybe it's too early. Maybe I'll test in 2 days and then it'll be positive. And then it's just sort of this building of hope.
Yeah.
And then dread and horror and depression.
Yep.
And it's hard. I get it, for everybody who's listening thinking, well, how on earth am I supposed to do this? It's hard. There's no question. You have to work at it a little bit, and you have to be able to firmly set some boundaries for
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Yeah.
But boundaries are important.
They are, even with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
with yourself. We had to go in for blood tests every single time. And the first round I tested and I kept testing. And after that, I didn't do it again because it was very upsetting. I'm trying to come up with the right word, but it was very upsetting to me because I already knew it was a no. I started bleeding. All my tests were negative. I knew it was a no. But I still had to go in and get an official. Like, they still have to take your blood. They still have to give you a phone call.
Yeah.
And then you have to decide what your next steps are. And that felt more emotional than it needed to be the first round. So I never tested again. And the last round, I didn't even worry about symptoms. Like, I remember at one point bending over and like it felt like someone had punched a nail into my stomach. And I will remember that to this day, is punch a nail. And it must have been one of the two of them. Because I don't have any other explanation, but that was really the only symptom I remember experiencing during the time between when we did the implantation, when we did it, and then when we got our yes. That was the only symptom I ever remember experiencing, because I just stopped paying attention to it. I was over it.
The more things that you're able to let go,
yeah,
by and large, the easier it becomes, the more even you become, the more the roller coaster kind of smooths out a little bit
Yeah.
when you just let stuff go and say, okay, I'm on the road and I'm just going to ride along until the next rest stop, until
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And, you know, life is stressful enough as it is. Our stress levels are at a constant high. So it sounds weird to say, don't add these little things. It sounds like little things, but every little thing you add
yes.
just increases your stress levels, and it's
Yes.
already too high to begin with.
Because most of us are already sort of in a state of like chronic
Mhm.
stress where things are not working the way that they should be. It totally feels normal because this is the way our society is set up now. And we've all bought into it. And for better or for worse, it's just the way it is. But it feels normal. So I'm so busy. Yay me. I'm doing this and this and this and this. And look at me go. But there's a trade-off there, the hormones get out of whack. Chronic stress decreases your blood flow to all of the places that are not essential for your life. And let me just tell you, your uterus is not essential for your life. Chronic stress shifts your reproductive hormones into low gear. You do not make as many as you need when you're stressed out and your cortisol is going crazy. And if you aren't sleeping well, either because you're stressed out or because you're super busy and you're like, I can get by on 5 hours of sleep, because that's another thing. We're all just used to feeling a little bit sleep deprived and we don't think anything of it. We just grab our coffee or whatever and carry on. But your hormones, your reproductive hormones, are actually produced in your body while you sleep.
Right.
And so when you short yourself on sleep, you're not getting what you really need.
Exactly. Exactly. I've had so many people over the years that I've worked with who found it shocking that the first thing the body shuts off is your reproductive system. It's like, well, think about it. Do you individually need that to survive? Could you survive without it?
When the lion is chasing you, because I always go back to that because
Yeah.
that's where this came from. When the lion is chasing you, you can't be pregnant.
No,
That's ridiculous.
no. You need
So
that energy to run.
yeah, exactly. And that's where it's going.
Yeah, that's exactly where it's going. Oh, well, I have loved this, and I know you definitely have some offerings for everybody, and I would love for you to share them. I'm going to preface this real quick with you guys. These are things that I have done in the past with my clients. These are things that I have found helpful, not just for myself, but for them, especially when we have hit, the chronic illnesses. I've worked with people who are in stage 4 cancer. They're not looking at a very long life, but things like this have helped them. So I'm very excited for you to share this with everybody, because this basically just puts everything that I love in one package.
A
So
little bundle.
please,
Yeah.
by
So
all
I've
means.
put together a little bundle of different mindfulness exercises. There is about a 10-minute guided meditation just focusing on relaxation. That's all it is. Just for, it's short enough that you don't need to put aside a lot of time to do it, but it'll get the job done. There is a little journaling exercise called the Rings of Control, to help you figure out what things you actually have control over and what things you really have no control over, so that you can stop worrying about the things that you have no control over. Because that is a huge issue. We spend so much time worrying, understandably, reasonably, but a lot of worry is over things. There is nothing that we could possibly do to influence whatever outcome that is, and so it's best just to let it go. There is another little journaling exercise, writing a letter to yourself. It's a self-compassion tool, because as we've already touched on a little bit, when you start going down this road, you go negative in your head. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. It's never going to happen. And you would never say that to a friend who came to you and told you her story. So why on earth would you ever say it to yourself? So this little letter writing exercise is to help you talk to yourself better, kinder. And then lastly, there are 8 affirmation cards. 7 of them have a pre-printed affirmation on them, and one of them is blank, so that you can put your own message on there.
I love that.
Yeah. So if you head over to my website, lilyandbefertility.com/bundle, that's where you'll find it.
And I will put all those links down there because I want you guys to be able to reach out, especially if any of this resonates with you. I'm telling you, looking back, I didn't have anybody that I knew, or I really didn't even think about trying to connect with a fertility coach. But it would have been tremendously helpful because for us, we have coaches for everything. We can't look at ourselves and go, "Oh, here's what you're experiencing." So if you're out there and this resonates, I'm going to encourage you to reach out because it would have significantly improved the way I felt like the experience went, which makes a major difference long term.
Yes, it sure does.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Bonnie.
I am excited for you guys to connect and to see what else she has to offer out in this world. So all of those links will be below, and we will catch you on the flip side. I'll see you next time. Cheers!